It stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order at 7:05. Welcome, everybody. This is the time of the meeting where we open the meeting to the public. Anybody who'd like to address the board? Is there anybody who'd like to address the board tonight? Nate?
Chris, and the board, I'm the president of the PTA in the middle school, and I just want to bring it to the attention of the board. I know we've all been hurting both mentally and financially on what has taken place within the past couple of months thanks to El Nino. We have to blame it on somebody, right? We didn't ask for the ice storm, we didn't ask for the flood. The ice storm was declared a national emergency class 4, which is next to an earthquake, class 5. That might be next. I don't understand, for the love of me, and I spoke to Senator Stafford's office the other day. I got a reply back from Senator Stafford. I called Mr. Otloff's office. I never got a reply back from his office. I was told, this is the law, and I saw it in writing. You have to have the 180 days. But if the law was to be changed, it would have to go before legislature. I said, well, why do we have legislatures then? Why do we have them? Can't they see this? Normal people would see this and say, hey, look, everybody's hurt by this. We didn't ask for it. Give the people a break. And I was told we should write something up. We should send it to Albany. Then they would put it on the floor, and maybe they may pass the law. All right? But I did check with them, and the only one that did not get back to me was Otloff's office, and I don't understand why. But I really seriously think somehow, some way, and I did speak to you before, Chris, about it, that people should get a break here. We have not been on vacation, even though other areas in the counties think that we weren't. I don't consider being stuck in a shelter for a week off on vacation. All right, so I really hope the board takes into consideration the financial and mental blight that the people of this district have been through before they start changing the Easter vacation. Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Yes.
You
I'm very proud of my son.
identify yourself, please?
I'm Shirley Dubuque,
Okay.
and talking about my son Patrick. Yes, we were not on vacation, and neither was he. During the ice storm, he went out with the Civil Air Patrol, and he cleaned up debris the whole week, from 7:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. This past week, he was out sandbagging every day with the local fire departments, one in Champlain one day and in Ross's Point. And I wanted the school board to know this, the kids were not, at least my son, was not on vacation.
Is there somebody else? Anybody? Okay, if there's nobody else, we'll move on to the meeting.
And as a discussion item, we'll be talking about
Later in the meeting, as a discussion item, we will be talking about the recent flood and the impact it's going to have on the vacation days. Okay, I'll need a motion to approve the previous minutes of the March 9th and March 23rd meetings.
So moved.
Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to approve the treasurer's report, general, January 98. Federal, January 98, capital, January 98.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion to accept the extra classroom activities account for February of 98.
Actually, we had a typo.
Oh, excuse me.
January.
That's January also.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
So
Discussion?
These- Just a clarification, we should probably act on this, and then, yeah, and then, somebody had a question about the health that was stated it was January, February.
It is actually February.
These are February, and this is where the typo is. It should read January for extra classroom activities only.
No, extra classroom is February. Personnel attendance is February.
Excuse me, sorry. Sorry, my mistake.
Okay, let's get this straight.
Okay, February is okay on the treasurer's reports. Extra classroom
It's February.
is February, and personnel is January. My error, sorry. So we're all set.
Extra classroom is,
It's February, as stated,
okay, the first three.
and those are February.
Okay, we'll have to amend them up, amend that.
Well, was it stated January for the first part? Okay,
We'll have to amend
yeah.
that. It's back to February and personnel.
So moved to amend it to January for all treasurer's reports and extra classroom.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Personnel,
And that should be January.
personnel is changed.
Yeah.
The extra classroom activities account for February of 98, we have a motion.
So moved.
Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And Chair acknowledges receipt of personnel attendance reports for the month of January. We have 4 reports tonight dealing with the New York State School Report Card. For the elementary, John Huckrow will be giving the report. Anna Nardelli will give an English language arts report. Kevin Mulligan will give the middle school report, and Robert Musso will senior high report. And if I speak and call on John first.
Thank you, Alan. This will be very, very brief. A couple of years ago, we had what was perceived to be a problem with some reading scores at the 3rd grade level. And I say perceived to be a problem because it doesn't appear as though that had been a continuing happening in the district. We had some bad scores. And there was a reason for the bad scores. We had some students that weren't up to par. Well, it didn't really do us a whole lot of harm. As a matter of fact, maybe it put us on our toes to have that set of scores for that year. Because every single one of the teachers, these are the ones you see here and those that aren't here tonight, in all of our schools put a lot of effort into meeting what the state expected from us since that time. And you'll notice that this year our scores have significantly increased. Every score on every test at the elementary level, I don't know about the upper levels, they'll have to address that, at least met the 20% gains that the state expected us so that we wouldn't have to do a school improvement plan for that. We had a couple that still didn't quite make the 90th percent, but we're getting there. And I think a lot of people should be congratulated for what has happened in the last year. Now, there are probably 4 or 5 reasons why things have happened. Number one, as I said already, the classroom teachers. They put an awful lot of effort into what's happened. Number 2, our remedial teachers. They have redirected themselves so they're addressing what the expectations of New York State are. Number 3, the big, where's Kevin? He's back there. The ELA program that we're involved in now is going to make significant changes in the way we address the English language arts program in our district, and they'll go into that a little bit further. And well, those are the areas that have shown that we're working on at this point to show considerable changes, and that will cause a lot of improvements as we move along. You should also know that after this year, the 3rd grade kids will not have tests any longer. They will be at the 4th grade level, and it will be an English language arts reading test instead of the traditional reading test that we have as a PEP test. We don't even know quite what it looks like at this point, but it will be different, it will be a little tougher, and we're kind of gearing up for that. That's all. See if these guys can keep theirs short.
Yeah, John, the level that we scored well on, could you speak, what's the term the state uses, the minimum,
Big what?
what's the term?
Statewide
State
reference
reference
point?
point, is
Yeah.
that what you're basing, our success on at
Yes.
this point?
Yes,
Um,
you have to, that's the,
Yeah,
but there are different levels in the SRP. There's a passing, and then there's mastery, and so on and so
how are we
forth.
doing with mastery?
Good question, Steve. I can think of what the mastery level is on third grade. We're doing okay. I can't tell you exactly what the number is, but we're doing okay. We've got a lot of kids that are right up in the, like maybe mid-50s or so, with a 28 as an SRP. We have some kids that are near 100% on their scores. I can't tell you what percentages are, though.
Do we get that information someplace?
Yes, we
maybe
do.
not here? The state reference point next year will be high, right? We don't know how much, but at least higher? Is that
The test is, it's going to be a different test, so I don't know if it's going to be higher, lower. I don't know. It's going to be it's going to be a different animal.
I was led to believe that the state reference point is significantly low. That has been one of the criticisms throughout the state, that reference point is somewhat depressed, so.
SRP is a minimal standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Given the way the state's moving in terms of raising the bar, one would suspect, though, that next year's reference point, whatever that, and however they measure it, and whenever they measure it, is going to be higher.
It will be more difficult. But it
How would-
may be the same, it may be, say it's 28 this year, it may be 28 next year, but dealing with more difficult material. But we will see next January.
We'll see the test next January or the results.
We expect to.
Okay, Steve?
Yep.
Here's some information at the bottom of page 1 that might help you.
Is this on the Rouse's Point?
I haven't looked at it that closely, but that may be of assistance. At the top of page 1, render some assistance.
Okay. This is Anna Nardelli.
I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Professor Emeritus from Plattsburgh State, Mrs. Anna Nardelli, who many people in this room have had for a professor. She has been working very closely with our English Language Arts Committee, which is comprised of, now it's comprised of K through 12 faculty, and it's a program that we've been doing in conjunction with Shazy Central Rural School for use of the COSER funding that we've been doing. Mrs. Nardelli?
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. Good evening. I'm delighted to be here with you and most delighted to share with you a project that your faculty is engaged in and has been engaged in since September. As you are well aware, it's really very vital that Northeastern Clinton take a look at what's happened district-wise in connecting with the New York State standards. And I was called upon to help your teachers to take a look at the English Language Arts standards here in Northeastern Clinton, and that we have done. As you know, the New York State standards, we've been looking at the standards first of all in terms of the documents that are have come through from the state. We've looked at materials that have been given to us from the National Council of Teachers of English. We've looked at materials that have been delivered to us and have been printed from the International Reading Association, which is an outstanding authority in the field of the language arts. And of course, we've looked at the district materials. I'm sure you're aware of the fact that the district here has been working long and steadily on developing benchmarks for the English language arts as well as other curriculum areas. That is, exit outcomes of where they expect their students to be at the end of each one of their school years, kindergarten through 12th grade. When I was called upon to come here to Northeastern Clinton, I asked that I be given the opportunity to work with kindergarten through 5th grade teachers first, so that we could begin aligning curriculum and getting a better idea of what was happening here in the district. And this we have done. The teachers that I worked with kindergarten through 5th grade have taken a look at the language arts skills that are being taught here in Northeastern Clinton from kindergarten right on through 5th grade, so that there will be consistency and continuity in regard to what's going on. As a result of these skills that have been reviewed and have been established, they have also taken it upon themselves to take a look at the strategies that might be needed and could be user-friendly for all faculty in terms of implementing these skills. This is really vitally important because, as Mr. Huckrow was talking about state report card results and so on, the teachers want to be sure that they are meeting the requirements of the state and yet meeting the district requirements as well. So we have done that. I know I don't have very much time, but I feel it's really important to share a few points with you in regard to what is vitally necessary for any kind of a project of this type to be successful and to be completed in a way that it will be user-friendly, not only for the teachers here in the district, not only for the learners in the district, but for the community at large. And this is what the committee that I'm working with are certainly aiming for. One of the things that you have to remember in regard to developing any kind of a curriculum guide is that, as I've mentioned, you have to align the curriculum with the state standards. And this is happening at the present time. We do know that grade 4 of January of '99 will be responsible for the first English language arts test. It is going to be a 3-part test. The first part is going to be multiple choice. It's going to be based on a lot of literary passages, not only dealing with the English language arts, but these passages will be drawn from social studies and other pieces of literature as well. The second piece of it is going to be on listening skills, which is very, very important for all learners. You know, we don't teach listening skills through osmosis, and sometimes we get this feeling when we say to little children, listen, and they look at us very strangely. Well, they don't know what listen is. And one of the things we on this committee have made it a point to do is to be sure that we focus in well on listening skills. So we're working on that. The third piece of it, again, is a comprehension piece to be sure that learners do understand what they are comprehending and how they are taking the skills of attacking words and so on, and that they can become better word smart. So they are working now on aligning curriculum. Another process that they're engaged in now, which is vital to any kind of a successful program, is prioritizing the curriculum. What is important and what needs to be taught before any of the frills? And indeed, this committee is working on that. They're setting special curriculum objectives for all grade levels, K through 12. At our last meeting, which was held in March, was a full-day workshop, we had the opportunity, the K through 5 people that is, to connect with the 6 through 12 representatives. And it was really a great day because we were able at that time to share what our progress has been up to this point, and the 6 through 12 people got a chance to sit down and look at exit outcomes that they've been developing, and then taking a look at how they will connect with the state standards. Our next meeting, which will be at the end of April, the K through 5 people will link up with 6 through 12 so we can continue on with the curriculum alignment that I've mentioned. Another important piece of what we've been doing is to be sure that we articulate between grade levels. This is important because it does eliminate redundancy, and it sure does help students to be better prepared and will be prepared as they pursue any challenges that they're confronted with. The district has already set benchmarks for what the students should know, and I've got to tell you, in looking at these benchmarks, having worked with other school districts, they've done an incredible job on these, and the benchmarks that are comprehensive and certainly the type that can be achieved by learners yet the learners can be challenged. So the district really needs to be complimented on this. They're now in the process, the committee, of providing the staff ways to collaborate and to train relative other staff members for state standards. One of the interesting things, ladies and gentlemen, about what's happening with this test that's being administered in January of '99, there's been a nice little booklet that has been developed by the state that eventually will be going out to parents. It's to help parents understand what's happening with the standards. This is in regard to all the testing. And one of the things that's going to happen down the road is, and it's really, it's an incredible feat if it goes off, according to Commissioner Mills, and that is they're going to be training 1,000 teachers here in New York State to hand correct these tests that are going to be administered in January. And it's going to be led by consultants from the McGraw-Hill Publishing Company and state education representatives as well. So that's pretty exciting when you think about it, and it's going to be incredible when it happens. And teachers from Northeastern Clinton will be called upon to participate in this. Another exciting thing that's happening with this committee, the K through 5 people have now reached the point, I'm very happy to report, in developing what we call a template or an exemplar model that they're going to try to implement in their own classrooms to see if it's workable. By that I mean they've taken the state standards, they've taken the district standards, they've taken these skills and the strategies that need to be taught and their objectives, and they've come up with a model that they feel is one that can be used appropriately in the classroom to achieve the exit outcomes that are needed. And they're in the process now of attempting to pilot that within their own classes. Once they get the feedback on that, then we iron out some more wrinkles, then we're going to try to, we're not going to try, we are going to present it to other colleagues for them to attempt to pilot it in their classrooms, and so that we can get more feedback from them, and we certainly want them in on this process. Another piece of what's happening is we've been looking diligently at assessment and the assessment and evaluation processes. What do we do in our classrooms to truly assess, that is to gather data and gather information about the learner? And once we get this, what do we do with that information? As a result of this, as they continue on working, we're hopeful that this will progress into the content of the district benchmarks, and maybe down the road taking a look at, if necessary, revising the present report card here in the district, if that's something that needs to be done. Another important piece of the work that this committee is doing is, again, at this point, surveying classroom teachers K through 12 to find out what kinds of literature is being used in the classrooms. And we want to be sure that we get a look at some of the core materials that are being used, so there won't be repetition, constant repetition, and so on, and that we use what's available here in the district, but use it effectively. And that's really a very important component. I really cannot, ladies and gentlemen, say enough to you about what has been happening with this committee. The growth and the progress and the diligency of the people involved in it, I tell you, it's highly commendable. We've done a lot of work, too, at the beginning when we started working together to do some self-reflection. That's really an important key in understanding who we are before we even begin working with learners. That was important. We've brought in a lot of the research done by the outstanding psychologist and educator, Howard Gardner, which many of you probably are familiar with. He has done a great deal of work in the area of looking at multiple intelligences of the learner. We know now that it's not just a matter of looking at the linguistic intelligence or the logical math intelligence of learners, but we all learn in different ways. And as the committee works, they keep this thought in mind. Another important piece that they keep in mind is the fact that it's not so much how teachers teach, but the important aspect of this is how do children learn? And that's what we're about. We have to accommodate the learner, and they're working real hard at that. I know I've just gone through this very, very quickly, but I just want to give you a scope and a sequence of what's happening with this English Language Arts Committee. But I need, before turning the podium over to your next speaker, I need to feel that I would be rather remiss if I did not pay tribute to some big or key figures in this most challenging but rewarding process. For the record, being a professional educator for 40 years, whose career has spanned from teaching in the elementary school, progressing and supervising with middle school and high school people, and spending several years working at the college with all levels, from freshmen right on up through graduate schools, and having traveled around the state and even the country, and having the opportunity of connecting with a multitude of educators along the way, I do believe I have the credibility to make the following comments, and I will. As new standards loom, each district must have strong administrators to support these higher standards. The process in which we are now engaged would not be possible without the leadership and the continual support of your superintendent, Krista Grand Prix. He is always available to us. Mr. Kevin Mulligan, who's your middle school principal and is the NCCS staff development coordinator, consistently demonstrates his genuine commitment to your district and to the teachers and the students in it. His sincerity, his knowledge base, and his enthusiasm for this essential project are to be recognized. And I can't say enough for Kevin. I mean, the phone calls that go back and forth and the faxes and everything else, it's just incredible. He's been there and continues to be there. Thank you, Kevin. The elementary administrators, Joanne Orr, who I know is back there, John Huckrow, Tom Graves, they listen to their teachers, they share with their teachers, they encourage their teachers, and they make themselves available for consultation and support. And I tell you, from the experiences I've had and continue to have, these qualities and characteristics are extremely essential if the job's going to be done and done well. Last, but far from least, ladies and gentlemen, are the ELA committee members who are working. I can't even begin to tell you how much time and energy they put into preparing a district English language arts curriculum guide that will service your students and be the pride of the district. They will say this guide will and should service all teachers, students, and parents in the NCCS school district. The students, I can assure you, and I say this very confidently, will be well prepared to complete their first ELA test in January, and then grade 8 will be given one in the spring of '99 as well. It gives me great pride and great confidence to know that in this audience are actual members of this committee that have come here because they feel so strongly about what they are doing and the commitment they have. And they're going to kill me for this at our next meeting, but I want them to stand, and I really personally would like to applaud them for being here. So please. They're the best. Thank you for this opportunity to share this with you, and it's certainly, again, my good fortune to have the opportunity to work with these fine group of professionals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next on the list is Kevin.
It's a tough act to follow. This year, I don't have much to report on for the report card for the middle school. Next year will be a different story because the 6th graders that are now here are going to be taking the PEP tests and the PET tests, and that will become part of the report card for the 98-99 school year. This year, there's only one test to report on, and we did exceedingly well. It's the 8th grade PET test, the performance efficiency test, and as you can see, for our school, we had a 51.9 out of 70 combined score, and similar schools were 49.7, and all public schools throughout the state were 46.7, so we did very well on the 8th grade PET test. The other thing that I want to address is a little follow-up as far as staff development, what we've done this year. We've taken a look at a number of avenues, primarily two in particular. One is assessment, the alignment of our English language arts curriculum, and I'm sorry, there's a third one. And the third one would be, besides the assessments and the alignment of curriculum, it would be classroom instruction procedures. We've had this year, since July 1st of 1997, we had during the summertime 21 faculty that went to summer workshops. And since then, we've added 67 other faculty that have gone to workshops throughout the course of the school year. And another factor of staff development that we've brought in, which I'm not including in the figures of a total of 85 teachers going to staff development, we've had people involved in the tech grant project with Peru, St. Mary's, and St. Augustine down in Peru. And in that tech grant project, we've had a number of faculty, 2 from each building, for a total of 10, that have been working with a laptop computer and working with the internet. And they've been working out of the Teacher Resource Center and getting some computer training as well at no cost to the district, because everything's reimbursed through the tech grant of $50,000 that we received. So there's been a number of projects that we've been undertaking to try to prepare for the upcoming new regents, everybody taking the regents, and the new testing that's coming in for 4th grade and 8th grade. Next year, we will have, the 8th graders will be taking a English language arts test and a math test. And the PEP tests that are common for the 6th grade and 3rd grade are being phased out, and this new testing is going to be brought in. By, I believe it's the year 2000, there is going to be 4 tests that are going to be administered to 8th graders: social studies, science, math, and English language arts. And they're going to be basically a sequel to the testing that's provided to 4th graders, and there's one test that's going to be administered to 5th graders, which is the social studies test. And it's hoped that this testing is supposed to be a predeterminant of how well the kids are going to do on the Regents exams. If they're doing poorly on the 4th grade test, that is an indicator that they're going to have difficulty on the Regents exam, and that we have to provide some remediation for those students. If they do poorly on the 8th grade test, it gives us an idea that we have to get them prepared, and we have very little time to do so, to get them prepared for the Regents, because they're lacking in some skills and some instruction practices. Okay? Does anybody have any questions concerning staff development or the middle school report card? Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. And lastly, Mr. Robert.
I have copies of the high school report card if you don't have them, so that you can follow along here. For the most part, I'm going to generalize on the results that you see here on the report card, because you can read most of this for yourself. One of the things that we do as we look at this report card is certainly to look at trends over the past 3 years and try to determine, by use of those trends, how we're doing in the different areas. And if we start right on page 1, you'll see that a trend in Regents diplomas in the last 3 years has consistently gone up from 32 to 34 to 47%. And we're pleased at that. We're not stopping there, of course. In the future, all of our students will have to get Regents diplomas. So we are working to improve those. I think page 2 is the one that needs probably the most explanation, because you need to compare some of these charts. It's required that our students pass a reading and a writing competency in high school, or pass the comprehensive examination in English. And so, on the first part, they've included both the Regents results and the RCT results. And if you look at in our junior class, we had 119 students. They used the junior class year because that's the year that both of these exams, the RCT in reading and writing and the Regents exam, is given. We had 55 students who passed the Regents exam, and we had 64 students who passed the RCT in reading. So if you add those up, that's 119. 100% of our students passed the either the competency or the Regents. If you go down to writing, again, we had 55 students, the same 55 passing that English Regents, and we had 62 students. That tells us that we had 2 students who in June did not pass the writing comp. That's a total of 98% did pass. At this point, they've taken the comp again, and 100% of our students have passed that requirement. This next chart is a very difficult one to understand. It's difficult for many reasons, because it talks about students who passed any math Regents. So they might have passed Math 1 or Math 2, or by the time they're 11th graders, Math 3. And so it's hard to do a comparison by adding up students. You really can't do that. It shows that, in my mind, it doesn't really show a whole lot, this chart. Because as a student, as a 9th grader, may have taken, let's say, Math 1 non-Regents. And at the end of that course, they would normally take the RCT in math. And they may have passed it. Their next year, they may have taken Math 1 Regents, and at the end of that, taken the Regents exam and passed it. So you've got some duplication as well on this chart, and I find it very difficult to get a lot of meaning out of any part of that chart. On the next page, it discusses the Regents results in comprehensive English, and of course you can see for yourself that there's not really a trend here. We kind of have an up and down effect. 46% passing, 49%, and this year we're down to 45% passing. Out of 62 pupils who took the test, 55 of them passed it for an 89% passing rate of those who took the exam. Now when it talks about the average grade enrollment there, what they have done is taken the number of students in grades 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 and averaged them. This next page, page 4, talks about Regents exams for languages other than English, and we have 2. We teach French and Spanish, and those results are, well, they're exceptional. 100% of the students, both in French and in Spanish, who took the Regents exam passed them. There were no failures. And the 81 students who took the exam, those would be just the students that are in either French 3 or Spanish 3, because those are the years that the Regents is given. In foreign language, there's only 1 Regents, and it's given after the 3rd year. So the results of that examination were just terrific. Students did a great job. Sequential Math 1, Course 1. Again, it's kind of difficult to get meaningful information here, because if you look at the average grade enrollment, 124, and then look at the next column over, the pupils tested, you'll see that there were 128 pupils tested. Again, this is because 8th graders take the exam, 9th graders take the exam, 10th graders take this exam. So it's hard to pinpoint a particular grade level and say how that grade level is doing on the exam. But overall, out of 128 pupils tested, 91 of those students passed for a 71% passing rate of those tested. Sequential Math 3, you'll see our numbers drop significantly in Math 3. That is the number of students who took the exam. And that's because Math 3 is an elective. Many students are required to take only 2 courses in math in high school at the present time. It's going to go up to 3 courses. But we only had 61 students take the exam. 47 of those students passed the exam for a passing rate of 77%. And again, really no trends in any of these. We find over a 3-year period that one year we're up a little, one year we're down, the next year we're up again. So we haven't found a trend there either. Regents exam in biology, 84% of the students taking the exam passed the exam. We had 69 students took the Regents exam. And of course, Regents is still one of the courses that students are, biology is still one of the courses, and in the science area we still don't necessarily have to have students taking the Regents. We are still in that area allowing them to take the Regents competency exam. Currently, all of our freshman students this year will be taking the math Regents. All of our freshmen from last year will be taking the English language arts Regents. The following year, all are required to take the social studies Regents, all of those freshmen. Although we are having all of our students jump 1 year ahead and take the social studies Regents this year. Chemistry, the results in chemistry usually are quite good for the students that take the exam. We had 41 students tested, and 39 passed the exam for a 95% passing rate. But again, even in chemistry, where our results are consistently good every year, it depends upon the kids that are in that class or those classes that year, and our results are kind of up and down. We don't see a trend there. Global studies. This is an area where we've seen, I think, some significant improvement. The number of students passing the exam, 80%. If we look at the average grade, that's the top figure, the average for the grade passing the exam, it's at 53%. If we compare that with all public schools, that's at 48%. So we are higher than all public schools in that area. And we have been, except for 1 year, except for that middle year, we have been higher than all public schools. So we do quite well in that global studies Regents examination. And the number of students passing that with distinction has greatly increased. Last year it was 4%, this year it's 12%. We do have a trend in this next area, U.S. history and government, that we certainly need to look at and find out why the trend is as it is. We have had declining results in the past 3 years. We want to turn those results around and get more kids passing that exam. Although we had 81% of the students who took it actually did pass, 47 students out of 58. Finally, in occupational education, the proficiency examination. This is an exam that's required of all students who have an Occ-Ed major, all those who go to CV Tech or would have a major in the courses that we offer here. There was a trend that was broken here this year. In 93-4 we had 84%, 94-5 it went down to 83%, then down to 68%, so we had a 3-year trend of declining results, and this year those results are up significantly from last year. We had 68% of the kids who took the exam passed it last year, 87% passed it this year, so we are going in the right direction there. Our number of special education students, you'll find you don't see any numbers in most of those columns, and that's because of the few number of students that we had in those areas. If you have less than 20, they just put in those little pound signs. But if you do look at the bottom, where it talks about the high school graduates and our local diplomas, last year was a little lower. We had 50% of our seniors graduated with a local diploma. 5 got local diplomas, 5 got IEP diplomas. In past years, the ratios have been quite different, as you can see. And that varies from year to year. That includes our students that go full-time to the special education program at Champlain Valley Educational Services. Page 14 talks about the different rates. The attendance rate, our attendance has been quite consistent over the past 3 years. We're down a little from last year, down about 0.7%, but we're up 2% over the year before that, so we're staying fairly consistent. The suspension rate, the lowest this past year that it has been in 3 years, and something that we are very pleased with, our dropout rate. You see a steady decrease in the dropout rate, going from 4.7% in 93-4 down to 4.2, down to 3.0. The report card certainly is just a reflection. It's taking a look at the new assessments that are being presented to us by the State Education Department, giving us a chance to look at our curriculum and evaluate our teaching methods, evaluate our curriculum, and work to improve it. In the next few years, I'd like to pass these out to you. In the next few years, as you, I'm sure, are well aware, we are moving into the area where all of our students will be required to take Regents examinations. And the State Education Department has seen fit to place a safety net in position for students so that the number of dropouts certainly won't increase, and so that they have an opportunity to pass these Regents examinations with a grade that is not considered to be passing now. Now, in order to pass a Regents, you have to have a 65. During this phase-in period of the new Regents examinations, the state is giving the opportunity for local school districts to approve a passing grade of between 55 and 64 for all students. That's optional. That's something that the Board of Education would have to approve. That passing grade of 55 to 64 would start with the English Language Arts Regents, which will be given next year, and would be good for the various regencies as they are presented for the first time through the period ending in the year 2004. I think what's felt is that, as you've heard with the English Language Arts, we are beginning now to prepare our elementary students to pass the Regents exams when they get in high school. That has not always been the case. We've known that the RCTs existed, and we've known that that was a minimum competency, and in some cases we figured that that's all some kids could meet, and so that's the area we were aiming for. We were teaching for that. And so now we've got some kids who are at the 8th grade level, the 7th grade level, the 9th grade level, and they're going to be required to take Regents exams. And the state is saying we need to give these kids an opportunity to pass that exam with a little lower grade, a safety net for them. So I would encourage the school board to take this matter under discussion and pass this safety net for our students in the next few years as these Regents are phased in. For our special education students, the state has also put a safety net in place, and that one is not optional. That one is a required safety net. What will happen is, with the English Language Arts, all special education students will be required to take the Regents exam. Now, there's a couple of safety nets, actually. If the board passes the policy that 55 to 64 is passing, then they could pass it with that lower grade. If they don't pass the Regents exam, for 1 year, they will be allowed to take the RCT. This is for all special education students. If they don't pass the Regents, they have 1 year in which they can take the RCT. That means they fail the Regents in June, they can take the RCT in August, they can take it the following January, and they can take it the following June. So they'll have 3 opportunities to pass the RCT. The state is going to use the results that the special ed students get on the first Regents that they take to determine a modified passing score for the Regents. It will be similar to the SRP. And so the following year, when the special education students take the Regents, there will be a modified passing score that the state will put out. I have no idea what it's going to be. It could be 50. And a special education student, would have to achieve a score of 50 to pass that Regents exam. So that safety net is in place. The safety net of 50 to 64 is an optional one that I certainly would encourage the board to look at and pass for our students. I think it's an important aspect for them. Thank you.
Okay, we'll need a motion to accept the Committee of Special Education recommendations for the meeting held March 11th, 1998.
Second.
Discussion?
They were fine.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion to accept the Committee of Preschool Special Education recommendations for the meeting held March 30th.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion recommending accepting the letter of resignation from Eva Durnan, account clerk typist, business office, district office, effective March 27th, 1998, and request authorization to post in-house if no one applies from within the district. The district will secure a certification of eligibles as required by law.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The motion recommending the appointment of Martin Bayshard as substitute bus driver. Mr. Bayshard has successfully completed his road test.
Second.
Discussion?
I will abstain.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sure, forget that. No, that's okay. Motion carried. Recommend the appointment of Angel Sanchez as substitute school bus driver, and Mr. Sanchez has successfully completed his road test.
So moved.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Need a motion to recommend the appointment of Diane Morelli as Director of Northeastern Clinton Central School Outdoor Education Program, effective July 1st, 1998. Mr. John Huckle has resigned. This is a volunteer appointment and an annual board appointment.
Second.
Discussion?
John's going to be doing it through this year. He'll be doing our program this year, in June.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
This has never been an annual board appointment before. This is something brand new.
My recommendation to the board.
Okay.
Why would you want to change it?
Well, we have a lot of positions in the district that we've been doing that way the last few years, coaches, for example, advisors, and so on. So with the change, that would be my recommendation. The board prefers to do it some other way then.
Does that mean it'll go up for bids every year or advertised?
It would be reviewed each year and handled at the organizational meeting when we make other appointments. Full series of appointments, you know, that long meeting we have in July.
So moved.
a very different motion.
Oh, sorry.
Discussion, please. Any other discussion?
If somebody else wants to do the position, then they have to submit a request, and then we decide who we want. Because the organizational meeting usually presented with a bunch of names and a bunch of positions.
Yes.
So will she automatically roll into that
Well,
position unless somebody else wants to participate, or?
Basically, what we've done with coaches, for example, is we have put them out there in the spring, and then we have appointed them on usually we do it, we're trying to do it earlier now, May, June, but not later than, say, July, so that people have a chance to plan for the coming year.
If you're basing this recommendation on how we treat coaches, we treat coaches like something you scrape off the bottom of your shoe sometimes. So I don't consider that, much of a recommendation that way. I consider the person fine.
That has
consider
nothing,
the reasoning-
there's no reflection on the individual
I just consider
whatsoever.
the reasoning completely out to lunch. I should have said one.
If the board prefers to amend that motion, it's free to do so.
I don't care which one.
Okay,
If
all
you-
those in favor?
Does that mean that everything we do then in July will be up for bids like that? Everything we do is, some things are just carryover. Whoever
Yeah.
has it the first year gets it automatically the second year. If you're gonna put time and energy into a program, I just have some kind of problem with putting time and energy into it, and someone else may say, well, I want it next year, or I'll try it.
That was the proposal I made on it, and feel free to adjust it accordingly. Just strike that part if you wish. If you prefer not to do it that way, that's fine.
I mean, we put a lot of emphasis on that program. It's an important program, and I think it needs some continuity in that program. And
I agree with it.
just don't like to see, something like, well, am I gonna have this next year, am I not gonna have it? It kind of takes some of the wind out of the sails to do a fairly good job in it then. Any, type of appointment like that,
We have a motion on the floor. We'll vote on the motion on the floor. If it's defeated, we'll put another motion on the
Well, this is
floor.
what we would make a motion to
Well,
amend,
yes.
the motion on the floor.
Correct, amendment.
I'd like to make a motion to amend it, to amend the motion to make this a volunteer appointment, and strike out an annual board appointment.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Is there discussion on the amendment?
Can we just, can someone make this clear? I guess the way it was written and I read it,
Okay.
again, it wasn't a personal issue, it was,
Not
as
personal.
long as that person still wants the position, that person would be appointed by the board. So what,
It gives-
explaining in the purpose
Well, the
of it.
purpose behind it is it gives the board a review, as it would with a number of other positions, annually.
We do that for what other positions?
Some other positions, coaching positions, and some other positions.
Coaches we bid on every year. They have to put a request in for it to be a coach every year.
This way, she wouldn't have to put a request in to hold this position.
That's correct.
She has it until she chooses not to have it anymore. And then we open it up. Just
The way
like
it's
John
written.
had it, has had
No,
it
no.
all
The way
the
it-
years.
The way the amendment is.
The way the amendment is written, that the individual who is appointed continues in that position until they are no longer interested in the position.
The way it's written.
And it doesn't have to come up for approval every year.
Correct.
That's the way Mike has it.
Right.
Correct. But under the way that I had suggested it, it would come up for review on an annual
Like
basis.
every other position.
Well, not every other position, but many positions, a number of positions.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Mike?
Yes.
No.
Sam?
Yes.
No. Please, 4-3. 4-3. The amendment passes.
Amendment passes.
Now the original vote, the original resolution to appoint Diane Morelli as Director of Northeastern Clinton Central School education program effective July 1st, 1998. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Don't you have it, we don't know discussion, so you're really putting me on the spot here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was a lousy recommendation to begin with.
Just a minute, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself a little bit. Any further discussion on the original amendment, original resolution?
Well, we already amended it. We already amended, the amendment was passed, so we're not voting on the amended resolution. We voted to put the amendment into that resolution. Now we're voting on the amended resolution to strike the last sentence.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just,
Further discussion?
just,
This is volunteer, right? This
Correct.
position is volunteer.
Volunteer
This
position.
person doesn't get paid for
Sure.
this is not paid, but is this, the effectiveness of the program and a person's performance evaluated by anyone?
Well, that's where
Is that why?
I was coming
is
from. It
that
has
the
nothing to
reason
do
why
with
you
an
had the-
individual. It has to do with the program
Review of the program.
and so on.
Eileen, did Mike win the last vote? That's all. If you won the last vote, then I'll support it. That's all I have.
The first vote was to strike, to amend the resolution to delete the annual board appointment. Now you're voting back on the amended resolution.
Now we're voting on the amendment.
Right.
Take out the last sentence.
Is everybody clear where we are? Where we are is we are voting on the amended resolution to appoint Diane Morelli as Director of Northeastern Clinton Central School Outdoor Education Program, effective July 1st, 1998, period. This is where we are. Is there any further discussion on this amended resolution?
How do we evaluate a position that's strictly voluntary, that is not an annual board appointment? Which I guess should have been asked before.
Oh, wait a minute, this program's been going along for what, 30 years?
30 or
The
30
way it is
years,
with
33,
Mr.
34
Huckrow,
years.
Nobody's had a problem with it?
It's run
And
beautifully.
Mr. Huckrow
and I
appointed
expect
coach,
it will.
nurtured Mrs. Morelli.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Congratulations, Diane, and thank you.
I'm gonna get there, what do you got?
I understand.
It didn't have to be this position, it just came up with this position.
Yes.
That's unfortunate, but that's.
Okay, I need a motion to recommend the following resolution regarding the appointment of a hearing officer. Resolved that the President of the Board of Education is authorized to appoint impartial hearing officers on behalf of the Board of Education as necessary between regularly scheduled meetings regarding special education issues. In the event an appointment is made, the action will be reported as an information item at the next regular meeting of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion to recommend the amendment to a previous approval on March 9th, 1998 to purchase vehicle number 12, a 12-passenger club wagon, in the amount of $20,006. 12-passenger club wagons are not available for sale to schools with new regulations. So the amendment is to recommend the approval to authorize a 1998 Plymouth Voyager 7-passenger minivan in the amount of $17,480.20.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd like
Yeah,
it.
Is this gonna suit our needs? Because we thought we needed a 12-passenger car before, in order to carry some of the smaller teams or some of the smaller groups that went around. So is this 7-passenger gonna work or not?
It will not be as convenient as taking a 12-passenger, but with some new regulations, they're not going to be, they're not available to schools. And interestingly enough, Mr. Minor has been to a meeting recently where they want to phase out all occasional drivers. You'll only be able to, you'll have to have a CDL in order to drive even small vehicles. And furthermore, the proposal is that only teachers be able to drive as occasional drivers in the future, that teacher aides would not be able to drive as occasional drivers and so forth. So there's a lot of new regulations coming down the road on this. This is about the best we can do in terms of a recommendation and for a smaller vehicle. And it's not as convenient as what we want. We want something a little larger so we can take groups of students, not more than 15, and have an occasional driver take them to an event or an activity. But it's not possible to make that happen with the current regulations, and we looked long and hard to find something a little larger, but we could not find anything that met the state standards. This was what we came up with, and what we recommended.
Are any of our station wagons three-seaters
3-seaters.
that we have now? We have 2 station wagons now, right? Are they 3-seaters or 2-seaters?
Seat in the back. I'd have to check on that.
Or are we better off to get a small bus that holds like 15 or 18?
We'd have to probably go up to something around 20. We looked at some of the ones around 16 or so, but there were none available. Yeah. Of course, that's CDL now. I mean, a commercial bus driver's license. We'd have to probably go to something a bit larger, maybe 20.
Why wasn't it Club Wagon? It's not approved by the state.
For public schools. Interesting enough, you can sell them to a non-public school, you can sell them to a college, but they cannot sell them to a public school.
Why? Where would we purchase them? Where would we go from?
State contract. Usually get a pretty favorable price. State contract.
Okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
No?
Steve?
Yes.
Sam?
No.
Vicki?
Yes.
Tim?
No.
Yes.
Alan?
Yes. And you did me a compliment. Cut that out.
Okay. 4 to 3, ordinances. Motion carries.
Motion carried. Need a motion to recommend the approval of requests by J. Andy Landry to operate a summer girls basketball program from June 29th to July 3rd, 1998, and the Champlain Youth Commission will sponsor the program.
So moved.
Discussion?
Offered this program last summer, very successful, sponsored by the Youth Commission, and it will be planned for the last part of June and first few days in July.
What grade level is that program?
It's,
High school or junior?
I believe it's,
Elementary.
Yeah.
I have a letter here somewhere around.
It's not in.
Doesn't say.
Do you recall, Shelley?
It was elementary last year, and I believe the same this year, through high school.
Through high school.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
3rd grade, 5th grade?
I would say at least 3rd grade.
3rd grade or what?
What'd you figure, 75 last year?
Yeah, I know
That
that.
one there?
Quite a number.
Or 95.
We wouldn't have any,
75 last year.
there wouldn't be a problem if we had schools like that?
It would have to be postponed until a later date if we were in session.
Now, why you say
Don't
something
your
like that?
pessimism here.
Hey, I'm tired of being optimistic.
That's all volunteer.
Well, I believe there's a fee involved in it,
$30.
and,
the
yeah,
supervisor's
that letter's,
involved.
There's a letter in our
But
packet,
they
I
get
think.
that.
They get a shirt
It pays the varsity girls
and pays the,
how coach.
pays the,
there are a number of volunteer positions involved, and there are, I think, a few people who get paid, but some, it says here that some donate their time. Would run the 29th, the 30th, and the 3rd. And then the 1st and 2nd to avoid conflict with summer school from 11:30 to 2:30. Fees $30. And there'd be scholarships available for 80 students.
Thanks, Matt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion to recommend the following additions to the 1997-98 substitute list: Judith Moore and Jenna Pavone for a certified teaching substitute. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion to recommend the acceptance of petitions for board members for the upcoming elections for the Board of Education. A 5-year term. President incumbent is Michael Ankoviak. Petition received from Michael Ankoviak. And term B, 5-year term. President incumbent is Timothy McCott. And petition received from Timothy McCott. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion for certificate of payment to K&L Plumbing for Phase 12 Middle School food service for the amount of $10,546.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion for certificate of payment to K&L Plumbing, Phase 12 Middle School, in the amount of $28,146.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion for certificate of payment to K&L Plumbing, Phase 12 Middle School, amount of $278.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
I'd like to, not anything particular on this bill, just to make sure everybody understands that all of these bills were reviewed at a committee meeting we had with Mr. Sample, and Mr. Benden, and the treasurer, and Mrs. Backrell, Mrs. Miller, and myself. I'm probably missing at least one individual, but they have been reviewed for their completeness and accuracy. And I would say that for the most part, they're on punch list items only with respect to Phase 12 and the food service programs. Just about.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion for certificate of payment to K&L Plumbing, Phase 12 Middle School, $3,884.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Need a motion for certificate of payment, Phase 12 Middle School to William J. Murray, amount of $8,055.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion for certificate of payment to Meet Patrick, doing business with Buck Paper Company, for the Phase 12 Middle School, for the amount of $57,000.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That's it for action items. Information items, we received correspondence from the town of Altamont regarding Governor Pataki's proposal to remove proposed budget to reimburse municipalities for tax revenues which are lost on lands under RTLT 480 and 480A. Would you like to expound on that?
Just a little bit. Provided to you in your packets were these resolutions that came from the town of Altamont. And we took a look in the tax books to see what the assessed value might be in the district relative to state land. And approximately $130,200 in assessed value, which would amount to about $2,200 for taxes. So if you've read through the various resolutions and so on, there's the possibility that Governor Pataki would reimburse municipalities for this, for the state land. And also there were a number of other agenda items regarding these proposals that were passed as a resolution. So I'll share those with you, and wonder what you'd like me to do on behalf of the district regarding any letter to the governor or to the legislature at all on this issue. We don't need to act on it, but if you did want me to write some correspondence to them, I'd be happy to. The impact is not significant on our district. But I think what they did is they sent these out to districts, to everybody, and there are a number of districts that have a tremendous amount of state rate. And it would make quite a difference to them. It certainly does not hurt to send a letter and to pursue it.
I just think the one that Long Lake did was just really kind of involved.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get to the one where you wanna put a resolution to try to reclaim some of the tax money, best you probably get is a percentage of it back if he ever passes. They're not gonna have money to pay all these school districts and villages and towns. They're probably talking millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Instead of paying, increase the tax rate to pay it. I don't even know if it's. If we were talking, $100,000, $200,000 coming to the district, I think he had bigger fish to fry and bigger avenues to pursue. That's just my own opinion here. Go down with.
I would prefer just, myself personally, just wait and see what happens on this. Okay. Is that agreeable to everybody? Secondly, Clinton County Industrial Development Agency Uniform Inspection Policy Review Team is meeting April 28, 1998. Any discussion, meeting on that?
Well, there will be a meeting on April 28th at the Comfort Inn in Plattsburgh, where they will review prior to any readoption of the existing policy or any revisions to the policy, and they were inviting us to suggest somebody to participate in that process. And I share that with you because I didn't know whether any board member was interested in that, and or whether you'd like to have a district person attend that meeting. In the past, it's generally been advisory to us with respect to any action taken by the Clinton County Industrial Development Agency. In recent times, they have been communicating to a much larger degree with us and asking us for input with regard to any of the particular projects that they're looking at. For example, with Champlain Button. They contacted us and wanted some input from us. So, if you would like, if the board member's interested in doing that, great. If you'd like to have a district person attend the meeting to represent us, we can do that. Wherever you feel.
I don't think it would hurt.
The district representative attend.
Unless there's something the board wants to. I guess by default, it would just get.
Okay. Certainly.
Okay, we're into the discussion phase. Under discussion, I guess it's, we're all been here for tonight. We're going to discuss the impact of the northern tier flooding, the impact it's going to have on our school calendar. Would you like to start?
Sure. Okay. It's been a difficult year, and to date, we've experienced a tremendous ice storm, now had spring flooding, and we had our usual snow emergency days in winter. And we have used 18 days thus far. We had 6 built into the calendar, and we were able to make up 5 days during what was going to be the February recess. We have 7 days we need to make up between now and June 30th. I asked for a meeting of the employee groups a few days ago, and we met with the employee groups and sought their input. We made a number of excellent suggestions, and I've conferred with the board, talked to the board about this, get some input from them on it, and now that we're here at the board meeting, and we need to confirm our plans as to how we're going to make these days up. At the meeting with the representatives of each employee group, we looked at the possibility of maybe making a long weekend out of the Easter recess, perhaps being off Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, and then at the end of June, making up the necessary days. And the following day, I called down to the State Education Department and asked them about this, and they said that if we ran short, we did not meet our 180-day minimum requirement, that we would be subject to a loss of state aid for every day fewer than 180. And with the kind of year that we're having, I mean, who knows what late April or May or early June might bring. It's not just snow and ice, but it's a well that might, not function properly, or some other kind of a situation that would come up that would not allow us to open school for 1, 2, or more days. And the impact on the district amounts to about $46,000 a day in state aid lost if we were short one day. If it was 2 days, it'd be times 2, and so forth. And so that has caused me to rethink it a little bit. Even Good Friday would not be considered a legal holiday and would be subject to a loss of state aid if at the end of the year we were not able to get our 180 days in. So I put together a recommendation for the school board to consider based on all of this information. I will also tell you that we have consulted with Assemblyman Ortloff's office, with Senator Stafford's office, and we received the following information back. We've heard back from both offices. And essentially, there is no waiver of days. You must meet the 180-day requirement. You must use all available days, like the Easter recess. And there's no precedent for granting any exception. And that the New York State Legislature, the Assembly, and the House would have to pass a bill, and it would have to be signed by the governor in order to give us any kind of a reprieve. So the recommendation is essentially that we attend school the week of Easter recess. That gives us 5 days. That we have our last day for instruction on the Thursday before graduation. That's generally a short day. Students come in, get their report cards, do their final turning in of books and library cards and so on. And it's a short day. And then Friday would be a staff development day on the Compact for Learning, very likely. And that would constitute our 180 days of attendance. So that's the first component of this. I know that there are a number of people that are here tonight because they're concerned about some plans that they have made for the Easter recess, and I have some recommendations on that as well, if you'd like me to share them, or maybe you'd like to stop and discuss what we've already talked about.
I can just ask the board if they're in agreement at this point.
Right.
I don't think we have a choice.
We don't have a choice. That's right.
We have to go 180 days. There is no waiver.
What's considered the last day of school? June 30th?
June 30th would be the last day that we could. Yes.
180 before June 30th.
Yes, and that's a very important point. You may not extend the year into July and August to get your 180 days in. It must be September 1 to June 30th. And people have asked the question, well, could you extend each school day for an hour and accumulate those hours and get an extra day in? And that's not allowed by state education law. Also, can you go Saturdays? And that's not allowed as well, except for driver education.
we've asked all those questions when we were discussing it, to research those out.
It's only been after-
Yeah, federal holidays you cannot attend also, like Memorial Day.
Which would be the only day available after the Easter vacation on the calendar. There is no other time available.
So that's that part of it. Would you like me to just go ahead and talk about how we would address some of the staff issues and so on? Well, we have done a survey, and I want to thank the administrators, and the union presidents and so on for helping with this. And with all employees, we have over 200 employees, full-time, part-time. We have about 25 or 26 employees who have made plans for the Easter recess and would likely either lose a large sum of money or for some other reason would, really need to be away. I can think of an employee who has a mom's going to have surgery out in the western part of the United States and needs to be there. That's been planned and that it would be there at this time. So basically, the recommendation is along these lines. If employees, and this includes a variety of classes of employees, if they have personal leave, the most really anybody would have would be probably 3 days for the most part. They could use any available personal leave. The rest would be without pay. But we have looked long and hard, and we have a substantial list of substitutes who we have commitments from that would come and serve the students during the Easter recess. And we're over 20 subs, and they're all certified, with the exception of perhaps one or two, and one is certified in another state and in process in New York State, and one is not certified, but certainly qualified. So I think we can cover the substitute situation very well. And there are some other conditions that we have to have considered. We're asking the union presidents if they would give us a letter that, a waiver regarding this, that it's not precedent setting in any other matter. I think that we want verification, of course, from employees and that sort of thing. But I think we can pretty much cover the employees' needs with substitutes and so on.
Clear that the date of these pre-paid plans is what, March 30th? The plans had to have been made before, verified before March 30th.
Okay. For people who, that would, because I'm going to need some very clear direction on this. If we have individuals who, when we say plans that are verified, we're talking airline tickets or accommodations and so forth. I'm just trying to go through the Rolodex here as to the needs that some people may have. That probably takes care of the majority of the people, as far as I know. I would think that would take care of the majority of the people whose situations I'm aware of.
Suppose you had people who are waiting to see what the decision was going to be before they made any plans. You said before March 30th. And they were waiting to see what was going to happen before they made any plans.
We were on the first of April, so I think when she started taking dates like that, and we were going into notification period. So we were getting
Yeah, we were trying to set a date that was before we lost the flooddates. actually out on March 30th. So I think it's a good start.
That's just a question, I didn't know if anybody was planning, I didn't know if
Well,
anybody's
the
even in that
letter-
category.
Like Vicki said, the letter that came out before said if we miss any more
Yes,
days,
there is.
we
The
were
letter
going to
went-
start taking
I
it
agree.
on.
A letter went out in January to all the parents, I think a letter went home to every parent, a letter went to every staff that was saying that this is what would happen if we had more days. So I think there's no issue that we have to go with that. There's no other way
I
to
don't
make
think
it.
it's unreasonable to ask to set a date.
I'm concerned about setting a date.
How does this speak to, if a senior student has gone, this particular time, if they decide their parents are going for a week and they're going with them, would this affect their school year, other than they would miss the school, of course?
Well, I'm going to classify it a little bit. Students who are going to France, they'll be going with a certified teacher, and I've checked with State Ed Department on that, and that we can consider that education. So that resolves the issue for those folks.
We thought if they're going to Disney World.
Well, that's probably an illegal absence with the rules from the State Education Department, but so long as they're doing well with their schooling, it would not, for example, keep them from graduating or that sort of thing. Mr. Musso, your thoughts on that subject? It would be considered an illegal absence.
Yes, it's very specific.
Very specific.
The state sets the guidelines of what's legal and what's illegal, and
If they missed a scheduled
anytime,
exam,
any vacation that they might take other than the regular school year, regular school vacations, probably be considered an illegal absence. Impassable roads, snow days, religious observance, music lessons, doctor appointments, those are all the legal, death in the family, those are the legal excuses. Most others are illegal.
If somebody is away with an illegal absence, and even though we've had all these problems, or is it going to be available so they can make up tests or whatever they've missed, or?
Well, we did have some students who left on a scheduled vacation during the February break, and teachers were quite good about accommodating those students, either giving them requested homework before they went, or allowing them to make up homework and exams or whatever when they returned. And I don't see any difference this time.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
What I have to say we encourage our students to be in school next week to the extent possible.
No, but there's parents out there, not just the people that work here, there's other parents that may have any plans.
Very much so. Sure.
Plans to take
And
their
there
kids
are.
with them, and
Very much so.
so on and so forth.
Yes. Okay. Enough on this?
The only thing I'd like to add is that this board's worked awful hard and we've agonized. Nobody wanted to take this vacation. We didn't want to take February. We've been fighting nature all through this, and we all know you can't beat Mother Nature. We pulled every trick we can out of our sleeve to try to save this vacation, we just couldn't do it. I think this is the best possible solution to come up with at this point. And I want to commend one person, that's Mr. DeGranter. I know personally that he put many more hours than people will ever know into trying to save this vacation, and phone calls to all me, much more numerous than people will ever know. He's been burning phone lines trying to save this vacation. He's done all he can do. And I just want to thank him for that, and at this point, I think this is the best we can do. Okay, the next item, we would like to suggest that we send a letter to Senator Stafford regarding board member seats. See if we can get the law changed to where we can have different year term limits. We tried this a couple of years ago, and we're told that by state ed law that if you wanted to reduce the amount of time a board member had to serve to 3 years, everybody had to be 3 years. If you wanted to keep it at 5, everybody had to be 5 years. The problem I'm seeing is that, as stated here tonight, whenever we have a full 5-year term, we can't find candidates. My opinion is the 5 years scares people away. It's too long. But the other side of that coin is, if you're not here 5 years, you really don't know the workings. You have to be here at least 5 years in order to know what's going on. I know I learn every time I come here. I mean, Mike's been here, I don't know how many years, and I'm sure there's things that Mike learns every time he comes. So the plan that we proposed a couple of years ago was that some members would have a 3-year term, some would have a 5. The 3-year term would be an enticement for people to run. And the other pattern that I found is once they run, they like it, and they run again for the next 5 years. I know it was in my case. I filled a 1-year term. I liked it, I'm here. Unfortunately, state law says you can't do that. And for the life of me, can't understand how we can run the Congress of the United States with 2- and 6-year terms, congressmen and senators, and the Assembly of New York with 2-year terms, and the Senate in New York with 6-year terms. How they can operate, the school board can't. But this is state law. So I would like to suggest that we send a letter to Senator Stafford outlining our concerns and see if we can introduce legislation to change this law.
There are some school districts in the state that have rotating terms. It is done. I know it is done. There are some that have 5 years and some have 3-year terms.
Well, we were told a couple of years
On
ago
the same
by...
board, I know. I know what happens. I've seen papers and...
I can only tell you what we're told. We were told a couple of years ago by our school attorney, and he checked with Albany,
Can
and he
you
said...
check with New York State school boards? I'm
we had our...
absolutely sure that you could have...
We had a negotiating attorney here just last week, and he reaffirmed that it's state law and it's all or nothing. Either it's all one length.
Maybe it's what happens to
Well, we'll see.
You know how that goes.
That seem
I think Shays
acceptable?
have it. Check the Shays. I think they're one of the ones that have it. No, because some of them are bigger districts, downstate have it. I know.
Well, if it can be done, we'll check into it again, but if it can
It's
be
a big
done...
hot
we
issue
suggest
downstate,
it.
because every time there's a seat open downstate, they have 6 8 people running for the seat.
And I think it's the length of term that scares people
Yes.
away.
And they have some 2-year terms, 2-year, 3-year, and 5-year. So I think New York State School Board should be able to help us on that.
We'll bring it up again
I'll
next
call the
month.
area director and find out if you want to
Sure.
find out. I'll give her a phone too, so I can go our area 6 director.
We'll bring it up again next month, and there was a chart I put together a couple of years ago, and I didn't want to dig it out again, because it is workable, it can work. Okay, next item is an increase in the snack and a la carte milk. And I'll let you address that, Chris.
I believe I sent you a draft of a letter, and essentially, we're providing snack milk for 15 cents for kindergarten, grade 1, I believe. And with the new food service program, we would no longer be able to get the reimbursement on the milk amounting to about 10 cents a carton for snack milk. We do get the reimbursement on the lunch that's sold. So we really need to move the price to 25 cents a carton, which would be what it would be for snack milk and also a la carte milk if you wanted a second or a third milk at lunch. If we go to a breakfast program in September, then there would be no more snack milk. There would be no need for that. So depending on how that unfolds, whether we move in that direction in the future, may be less of an issue at that time. We probably have a sum of about $5,000 in the lunch, in the milk fund, which will fold into the school lunch fund in due course, because it has been suggested, well, maybe you could subsidize it for the rest of the year. I'm not suggesting that, I'm just indicating that that was a suggestion that had been made. So we really need to make a decision on it. When we approved the food service contract, it was in the paperwork that I provided to you, and as I've said to you, to board members, I should have circled and highlighted that for you more. And I So that way you would have a chance to reflect on that warrant. My own view is that we need to move to 25 cents.
Now, how does that work? And it's, let's say now, we still do government milk, or how's that work?
Okay.
They take care of the milk program?
They take care of the whole thing now. We oversee the program, but they take care of the whole thing. If in the elementary school, it's $1.15 for lunch, $1.25 up here. You get a milk with your lunch for the $1.15 or $1.25. If you wanted a second milk, under the 25-cent proposal, it would cost you a quarter for an extra milk. And we'll get the reimbursement on the lunch and the milk, but not on that second one. That's just made available as a convenience to the students.
So over there, their money to be made over there is made off the food sales, and stuff like that.
Yep.
And that's all they provide. They just service the milk department, you could say. They make sure it's cold there and it's served. That's how they do it?
Well, the milk
It's their milk.
is a component of a Class A lunch,
Okay.
and the district will apply for a sum of about $1.90 for each Class A meal sold. And that includes, part of that reimbursement is for milk. But under the old program, what's called the special milk program, for each 15-cent carton sold, we get 10-cent reimbursement, 10 cents reimbursement from the state and federal government. But that no longer is possible. You can't get reimbursement for special milk and for school lunch. So as of April 1st, special milk is out. We're in the school lunch program now. So that's why the necessity for the 25 cents for it.
Okay. Okay, and the last item.
Was that acceptable to the group? And this letter, this draft letter that I prepared to update it and so on.
At least at the elementary level, the lunches are 10 cents cheaper, so it's kind of a wash at the elementary level. I don't know what all the prices at the high school
I
level
think at the
are.
elementary level, most kids don't drink more than 2 milks, but I know some kids at high school drink 3, 4, 5 milks, because 2 sips and they're gone, so that's, I made a suggestion to subsidize it from the lunch company, is that possible, just for the rest of this year? That was what we planned on, possibly.
You don't think
How
that's a
much
good
would that
idea? You didn't think Mike's idea was a good idea?
It's doable.
You just can't get reimbursed for both
Yeah,
milk and the lunch.
what it'll do is if we have 5,000 in that account, it'll just draw it down that much. It's doable.
Can you guess how much it would run us?
No, I don't think, it certainly wouldn't run us $5,000.
Couple of months.
Yeah, it's let's see, it's gonna cost about probably 10 cents a carton, something like that.
Well, you would take 10 cents for the carton and charge 10 cents for the carton.
Well,
And we
No,
charge
we
them
charge
15, like they're
15.
paying
We
now.
charge
Pick up the
15
extra
cents.
10 cents.
We pick up the extra 10 cents.
The idea is to get kids in there, get kids eating first, and then smooth out problems probably in the coming year. You're right. You just don't want to do anything to cause anybody to brown bag.
If every kid in the school had an extra milk a day, you'd be talking,
Okay.
There's consideration next year for a breakfast program. And this talk amongst the elementary principals was that if you have a breakfast program, probably the need for a snack time won't be necessary. And the breakfast program, I guess we're looking at for the start of next year. So if you're going to subsidize a snack milk for the elementary grades, it probably would be for the balance of this year.
I don't like the, respect, I don't like the idea of subsidizing, because you're setting a precedent. And if you start subsidizing this, what's the next thing you're going to subsidize?
We're doing that right now, with the milk. We've been doing it.
No.
no, the federal government was
Federal government
subsidizing
is
before.
subsidizing.
I got it.
And I know it's only 2 months to go before June still using that same argument, it's only 2 months to go. I mean, it's not that,
Mhm.
you might as well get used to it, because in September, we're gonna be doing it anyway, so.
I guess one other point.
What about our resolution at the beginning of the year? Don't we have to change our resolution from the beginning of the year then, where we said we'd only charge 15 cents for milk, and we set the prices?
You did approve it, and you approved the food
Did we
service
approve that
contract.
part of the food service
Yes.
contract? Will we
Yes.
nullify that? Okay.
Yes, yes. Also, another point is, quite a few of our students are able to take advantage of the free and reduced lunch program. So, students where there's a tremendous need are getting that milk for free. Not the second one, the third one, the first one. The whole lunch is for free. I think it would work okay at the 25 cents, so. But I want to make sure that the board is comfortable with it.
So I guess the question is, are we comfortable with 25 cents?
Yeah.
Consensus of the board?
All right, 25 cents.
Thank you.
And
You
last-
can put this letter out, maybe, or something.
That changed the date.
And lastly, the update on implementation of the district's technology plan and review the project debt services on the table.
Okay? I believe everybody got a copy of the debt service estimates. I talked to John Durkin from Unistat, our fiscal advisors, and Ken Bond, the school bonding attorney. And the bonding attorney advised me that the useful life of a project similar to the one that we are considering would be 10 years. When it gets into computer hardware and peripherals, I think that's a long time for us to consider bonding anything. So, as a starting point, I asked the fiscal advisors to put these debt service schedules together for 5 and 8 years. See what that would look like. And I asked them to do that for 2 amounts of money, one at $2 million and one at $2.5 million. And maybe we could take just the first page. It's an 8-year conventional debt service totaling $2 million at approximately 4.5% interest. And if you move over to the right, why don't you take year 2, 3, or 4, because I think it's more representative. Take year 2 is $330,000. If we get 90% of that from the state back in reimbursement, does that make our net share $33,000? Something like that? Okay, so just, why don't we add 10,000 on that, make it 43, just because there's some items in these proposed, in these bond issues that are not aidable. So the question is, would we afford 43,000 in the budget? Probably. We'd probably handle that. So that gives you a little idea of what the net impact would be on the local taxpayer based on a sum of $2 million. And then I also draw your attention to the interest, which is also aided by the state. So the total cost of a $2 million project would be $2,474,300 over the 8-year life of the debt service, for about $2 million of investment in computer technology. Maybe I'll stop right there so we can chat about that a little bit.
We pay a total of $247,000.
The way it works is, let me just take year 2, just to give an example. We would pay $240,000 in principal and $90,000 in interest that year for a total of $330,000. We would apply to the state in the same year that we make those payments. And in that same year, we would get approximately 90% of that back, which is the net share of, say, 33 to 43,000.
But over the cost of the whole thing, after the $2,474,300 loan, how much is the actual cost to the district, to the taxpayers?
Well,
We get 90% of that
About
reimbursed.
$250,000, taxpayers, about $250,000.
About $250,000.
Mhm.
That's,
Yes.
that's, exactly.
yes.
So,
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
if we go out and spend $2.5 million, there's only gonna cost them
We're spending $2
$250,000
million, they're gonna spend $250,000.
Over 8 years.
over 8 years, which is a deal.
It's a deal. Yep. If we can get that approved. This is just a different way of looking at it. This one costs just a little bit less, and it's the way they lay out the principal payments. You'll notice in the first schedule, it starts at $240,000 and goes to $360,000. In the second page, it starts at $250,000 and goes to $325,000. It's a little different way of constructing it to help a district get into a program like this, pay it off, and then work their way out of the debt service center. Because there are implications as we build budgets and so forth with doing this sort of thing.
Do you recommend an 8-year plan or a 5-year plan?
Well, just begun to study it. I think probably we'd go with a 8-year plan. I think that makes more sense. I do think that most of the equipment that we would acquire, the computers, the printers, the other peripherals like routers, concentrators, and so on, I think certainly they would hold us in good stead for 8 years.
Are they gonna be outdated by 8 years, those computers?
I don't-
I'm
Isn't
concerned
there
about them being
necessarily
outdated.
upgrades type?
I think they'd be, they would work because we're gonna be on a network. I think they'd be okay, but at the same time, if you'll notice in our budget, which we're gonna talk about in a few minutes, we're starting to build that budget. And I think my recommendation would be that we continue to build that budget for a period of 4 or 5 years till we have a sum of money large enough so that we can begin a replacement program, let's say in 5 years. You know what I'm saying?
Within our normal budget.
Within our normal budget.
Similar to what we do with buses.
Yes, so that when we get to the end of this, that we don't have a situation where we have a lot of obsolete equipment and we gotta go back out to the bond issue and so. So try to build something into the budgets each year to begin the replacement process, whether that be at 4 years or 5 years or whatever. And so there are other debt service schedules here, some for 5, some for 8, and then you'll notice what I have for $2.5 million. We don't know at this time exactly how much we're going to need, but I'm looking at one here for 8 years at $2.5 million, and at $422,500 annual principal and interest payment. Well, somewhere between $42,000 and $50,000 would be our net share, something like that. Okay? Questions about it, or? Okay.
Okay, that ends the regular agenda. We're going to have a budget workshop now, and then the executive session. And I do anticipate some action being in an executive session in case anybody wants to hang around for that.